Hello, and welcome to another World of UX podcast. This is your host, Darren Hood. Thanks for taking the time to join us on today. A special welcome, as always, to those of you joining us and listening for the first time. We have another special set of podcast episodes, and this time I'm borrowing from my peer, Debbie Levitt, on this one with the Ask Me Anything sessions, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to have a series of Ask Me Anything sessions where I invite two UX professionals to come on the show, and I have no idea what they're going to ask me. We're going to get into it, though. They're going to bring up some topics. They'll ask me, but we'll get into some discussions here. But we're just going to have some fun with this. I love doing this kind of stuff. We do this kind of thing at the Kaizen UX Rendezvous session. We do these when we have our little informal conversations, if you will. So I thought, hey, why not just start off the year by doing this on the World of UX podcast? So let me introduce my first guest. This is someone who has been on the show before. And as usual, I'll just give you the person's name. I'll let that person introduce themselves, and then we'll have a first timer on the show. But let's go ahead and dive in with our first guest with the introductions. My first guest that's going to join us today is the one, the only Maigen Thomas. Hey, Maigen, welcome.
I love the, I'm like, can I get a drum roll, please? That's amazing. Hi, I'm Maigen Thomas. I'm a UX professional with over 10 years of experience, and now I am an agency founder. So I am building Level 11 Technology, which is an apprenticeship agency. Essentially, nobody cares that I'm hiring the apprentices except for the apprentices themselves. But when it comes to the businesses, we deliver excellent work that's accessibility-focused design and development.
Oh my goodness, that is wow. That is awesome. You got it. Before we sign off, you got to spend more time. You got to share a little bit more about that. What an awesome idea. What an awesome
It's going
idea.
really well.
Yeah, because people need to get experience. They say,
do.
I want to get in UX, and then they want to dive right in. No. And I love how somebody said at the last rendezvous session, our other guest was there, somebody brought this up. In every discipline in the world, you need to have experience.
I was literally just having dinner with my partner's brother, and he's in the skilled trades. He is an electrician, and I'm like, we are just skilled trades. We are knowledge workers, but it's a skilled trade. That's what we do.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you for that introduction. And so now I'm going to jump back over to my little screen here, and we'll get ready to introduce our second guest, who is a first timer on the show. Someone who is relatively new to the discipline, but has a lot to share. And I'm sure she's going to have some great questions to bring up for everyone today. Let me introduce to you, and we'll let her give any details about her background as she sees fit. But let me introduce to everybody, Elmarie Woods. Welcome, Elmarie, to the show.
Hi, thanks, Darren. My name is Elmarie Woods, and I am a product designer. I attended to Kent State University, where I met Darren. He was one of my professors. I learned a lot, and I keep learning every single day. Right now I am working on my company, Haptico, building internal applications for different, people. It could be pilots or lawyers. So just centering more into that sector. And yeah, that's a little bit about me. Still learning. I have 3 years of experience. So
fantastic. So this is going to be fun. We get to jump around. We get to, again, no holds barred. Do not be afraid to ask anything. I hate to say it that way, but I got to say it that way for some of our listeners. There are a lot of things that are in the discipline that need to be covered, and a lot of times people don't want to bring it up. And so I encourage everybody, let's go ahead, let's have at it. No holds barred, no limits. Let's do it. There's a hand. What you got, Maigen? What are you going to ask?
Oh, gosh. Darren, I'm bringing this to you, and I really am excited because I know it's we're recording on a Saturday, and therefore it's calm and chill, but I am really hoping that this is the spark that lights a little bit of a fire.
All right.
I've noticed a trend in some of the things that early career designers, because that's who I work with mostly, is my intention with this apprenticeship agency is to hire early career designers and developers, people who have not yet gotten their first year of experience. I want to hire them and pay them to get their first year of experience because,
Nice.
well, how else are you going to learn?
Right.
But something I have actually noticed, and it has literally come along with the rise of generative AI. There's a lot of products out there that will like read and summarize for you. It will shorten whatever it is that you're reviewing into the most succinct, allegedly, whatever ChatGPT or whatever tool you're using may or may not deliver the correct information, but it is summarizing for you. And the frustration that I'm seeing, well, the frustration I'm feeling as a senior, as somebody with a decade of experience is people are really wanting that shortcut. They want the Cliff's Notes version.
Yes.
And I guess my question is like, what advice do you have for folks who are like, as my grandmother would say, ass over tea kettle, like rolling down, like, how do I get this done as quickly as possible? But like, how do you provide value and really understand your role when all you learn is the summarized version of what other people have done before you? And this actually, like, Elmarie, I'd love to hear your thoughts too, as someone who is junior or relatively junior in the industry. But like, how do we help people see that the shortcut isn't necessarily going to turn out to help you be a better designer?
We were just talking about this the other day in the rendezvous session. Our society is very microwave oriented now. When the microwave first came on the scene, we had no idea how it was going to impact us from a cultural perspective, that it got inside our head and now we want everything yesterday.
Microwavable, sushi size.
Yes. And in
Without the weight.
addition to wanting everything now, there's also a lot of people have a sense of entitlement. So when you take the I want it now and I deserve it, and you mix that up into what I like to always metaphorically say, into a pot of soup, doesn't taste very well. It sets some really terrible expectations, some really harmful expectations, because everybody wants to go from A to Z. They want to, okay, I'm starting off in UX today. I want to be a senior in 2 years. And sadly,
Yes.
when you look on LinkedIn, you see people who seem to be achieving that, but it's a mirage. Because I'll interject this for some who need to know, the line of growth, how you grow, how seniority is attained. Isn't that funny? In every line of work, there are paths to achieving higher levels of seniority. And
Yes.
I know some people might not like this, but the example that I'm going to use is in the armed forces. You don't walk off the street, go through boot camp, and then you're a 4-star general. It doesn't happen. And even though that is an armed forces type of a metaphor, it's still applicable across the board. I would think, you folks agree with that? You can't just come in and become a major. You can't just come in. And I remember telling somebody once that I was on a team of one early in my career, and I didn't achieve, part of that conversation, I told them, I didn't achieve senior title until I had been in the discipline for almost 20 years. And 8 years after achieving my first full-time, because I freelanced for 10 years before I got my first full-time UX-related position, and the person said, well, you should have said that you were lead. And I'm going, but that would have been misleading. Not only would it have been misleading for people, because people see you in-house and they see your title and they make certain assumptions based on your title. People see you, there was no LinkedIn back then, but when people see you outside of your organization and they see a title, they also have assumptions. So there is this, we have to represent the discipline properly, internally and externally, among peers and among people that don't know us. But this person said that I should have misrepresented who I was. And that person was
That's
misrepresenting.
common right now.
Yes, it is. It's at epidemic levels. But back to the actual question, we must, even though there are companies, and I don't know if you've seen this, Elmarie, yet, people will give you a title that you don't deserve now to keep you happy and to keep you at a company.
Yes.
And they don't realize the fallout that comes from that, how it detrimentally
They don't
impacts.
care. They'll give you that title and they don't care the
Yes.
fallout for you.
And a lot of times that happens when that lets you know that the UX maturity level is bad in that organization, because a more mature organization will know, I can't do that because of how it will impact the discipline. Because you have perception of the discipline in-house, perception of the discipline outside of the company, and we're responsible for that. So folks have to be patient. And I know this is tough. People don't want to be patient. They want to go from 0 to 60 they want to travel 50 billion light years in 5 seconds. It's not realistic. It can't be done. And most importantly, it's not sustainable. You can get a senior title. You can deal with people, and only people with a low UX maturity level think you're somebody that you're not. You can never really fool somebody who knows the discipline to think that you're somebody you're not. I run into seniors, quote unquote, I'm air quoting for people who are only listening by audio. I run into faux seniors all the time. And man, they start slinging buzzwords. They start trying to impress you with things.
Because it impresses people who are not in the discipline.
Yes, it
They're
does.
just like, ooh, you know what that means? Oh, how very
I'm like,
exciting. I just realized you speaking has just made me realize that what we're seeing is essentially someone who has they've played their Wii. You remember like a Nintendo Wii? I don't know if there's a new version. I just realized how old I am.
Right.
Whatever that new version is, where you do sports and you get your pretend baseball and you swing at your pretend, your baseball bat and you swing at the pretend baseball over and over and over. And you get, I just realized my sports analogy is going to run out here because I don't know what the score is, but it's like you go from that and you get the best possible score and you think, I'm ready for Major League Baseball. Rather than going, hey, maybe I should join a neighborhood softball league and get my actual reps in. The distinction, I think, for the people that want to read the Cliff's Notes version are people that are like, well, I'm just too bored or ADHD or whatever to actually read the real information. I just want the Cliff's Notes, and somehow that's going to still make me feel as if I've been at bat. And the thing is, like, part of our job is going at bat and failing.
Yes.
It's going at bat and saying, I made this design, and them saying, that's not what we're looking for. Okay, I made these 2 designs. Which one do you like? Okay, neither of those. All right, can you give me more feedback? Like, it's the at bat of bringing a design and finding out that it doesn't work. And I don't mean to like derail my own question, but I'm like, I see this in portfolios all the time.
It's a great point.
Which is like, I didn't get any feedback, but I did the right thing the first time.
Yeah,
you didn't.
Nobody
I promise you
1,000.
didn't.
I'll build on that.
Nobody bats 1,000.
Nobody has ever batted 1,000. Nobody will ever. Jacob Nielsen doesn't have a lifetime batting average of 1,000. Don Norman does not have a lifetime batting.
He would tell you that.
Yes. Susan Weinschenk does not have a batting average of 1,000. Go down the list. Ha-Fan does not have. These are some of the stalwarts who've been in the discipline for years and years and years. And
the distinction in their seniority is that they recognize that my at-bats have far outweighed the number of times I've actually connected the bat to the ball, and that's okay.
Yes.
It literally is what I learned from the failure as much as I learned from the success. And juniors feel like, well, I don't have to learn from failure. I see all of y'all that have failed, and I'm never going to do that because I allegedly learned from you. What?
Yes, absolutely. It is amazing that, I mean, we hear that and we think about iteration, but we forget what is iteration for. I mean, when you finally
iteration for thee, but not for me.
Yes, when you iterate, you're going to. I remember when we worked on Ford.com, and we redid Ford.com. We came up with the new version of Ford.com, and when we did that, of the day that we deployed, we celebrated, and we started working on the next gen site.
Right.
You work on something, and then we would study. Part of our job was to look at intercept surveys and to try to glean here's something that somebody's experiencing. Here's an opportunity to improve. So iteration already lets you know. We know iteration is a thing. We know we're going to iterate. So if you're going to iterate, then that means that, in a sense, you batted 1,000, but you didn't bat 1,000. I mean, you can get a more baseball analogy. You can get a single. You can get a double, you can get a triple, you can get a home run, you can get a bunt single, you can get a line shot single. There's so many different
ways to get to the finish.
Yes. Yes.
And all of them are learning moments.
Yes, they
And
are.
the fact that you're just like, nope, I'm going to hit it out of the park on the first shot. And I'm just like, but what have you learned?
Yes.
Now you've learned to be cocky because you think that your first shot's always going to be your best shot and that you don't have to actually put in the effort. And I'm just like,
Yes.
and the thing is, right now we're at a weird place in the industry where some people don't know enough to go, no, try again. They just go, all right, ship it.
And
What?
don't want to hear it.
Yes.
I come across a lot of people, and I'm going to tie this back into the question. And Elmarie, I know if you're ready to jump in, let me know.
Yeah.
There's an issue of people want to go from 0 to 60. It's actually, again, it's not sustainable because when you come into UX, you have to you have to be committed to lifelong learning. I make reference to that illustration. I think both of you have seen it, where I have UX in the middle, and then you have this splattering of different methods, methodologies, techniques, deliverables, all associated with it. And when you come in, you're building your level of expertise around all those things. When you come in, you only have 3-4 things in your toolbox. You really don't know what's going on. And we have to admit that we didn't know. I didn't know. And nobody knew. The people when they first started off in the discipline, all of those people were feeling their way. And nobody likes to admit that. But the Rosenfelds, when they were doing all that information architecture work for Amazon, we know the end of that story, because where's Borders? Where's Barnes & Noble? Amazon expanded outside of books, and look at where it got them. They saw an opportunity and they seized it. But what a lot of people don't know is that they heavily invested in the user experience. And that's how they ended up winning that battle. Not only UX, but CX too. If I can throw a little CX shout out there too, because they made sure to have a strong customer service experience. So they were going outside of UX. They were hitting the bookends of CX, as I like to call them. And so, but these people, they didn't know, the people that were writing those early books, when Richard Saul Wurman coined the phrase information architecture, who knew what it was going to turn into? A lot of people don't even know who he is. So we all have these paths. Nobody got there overnight. You'll never get there overnight. But a lot of the people today, that's what they want. They want to get there overnight. You can't. And anybody that does get somewhere fast, or it looks like they got somewhere fast, it's not sustainable. They don't really know what they're talking about. There was a person on YouTube who calls themselves educating people about UX. And they use the dreaded acronym of UX/UI. And every once in a while, I
Brett
try.
said they didn't use UI/UX. I guess you can get one point for that.
They may have. I don't remember.
no.
I just know that they used the combo acronym. I don't remember completely. I just know that I came in and I sounded off, because they call themselves educating people. People are liking this thing that this person posted. There's a ton of comments, and none of these people know, because when you first come in, anybody that's talking about UX, you're all in. And they don't realize that that's a dangerous resource. But they're educating you and they're using that combo acronym. There's something they don't know. And they are liable to feed you something you should not be eating, which, from an educational standpoint, and thinking about the fact that I learned that education has a UX maturity level also, that's bad. So I went in and I said such. If you're talking to all these new people and you're saying UX, UI, or UI, UX, whichever one it was, you're actually implying that that's a thing. You're doing them a disservice. That's unethical. A person came along and they said, "What do you mean by that?" A second person came along replying to me, "What do you mean by that?" A third person came along, they said, "He's just jabbing. He's just yapping." Yeah, that was his exact words. "He's just yapping." Not me. When I saw that, because I ignored the other people, when I saw that this person said I was yapping, that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up, so to speak. To this one, I will reply. And I said, "I have this much experience. I do this, I do that. It's not even possible for me to yap." The mere fact that you would say that, cast that kind of shade, and you want, the person who created the video was yapping. And that person I looked them up on LinkedIn, which I tend to do, and I encourage people, when you see people sharing information on TikTok or Pinterest
Validate the
or
information
wherever,
you're listening
yes,
to.
that's why one of the reasons I don't like Reddit, because of the anonymity. You don't know who's saying what. So you can't go out to LinkedIn to see, okay, who is this person? What has given them the right to do what they're doing and say what they're saying? And I found out this person had like 2-3 years of experience. They had no idea what they were talking about. They believed they were drinking Kool-Aid, and they're still 3 years later, they're still drinking Kool-Aid. That person is yapping. Do you know that after I told this person, this is what qualifies me to say this, this, and this, and I was real short with it, and I was polite. So I'm not yapping by any means. And then I went to explain a couple of things, as they usually do, as trolls usually do. They never come back and respond to what you say. But this person is trying to let people know you can, I mean, I've heard people say you can learn what you need to know about UX in 2 days. I've literally heard somebody say that. No.
That's what they feel like they need to learn. Cool. Good luck. Tell me more about your job search and how it's really hard.
Or you get people saying things on the line of not only can you learn everything you need to know about UX in a couple days, but you don't need to learn, we were talking about this at the rendezvous also, you don't need to learn the fundamentals of UX, you just need to learn Figma. Well, if all you know is Figma, you're a Figma
Trying to make
expert.
pixels.
Yeah,
good job.
You're just
You think
pushing
squares.
pixels. You're not doing UX work. You're not solving problems. You're not providing strategic input. You're not being a thought leader. You're just campaigning for a check.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is all.
Yeah.
So you can't get there overnight. I know we covered a lot of different things and went a lot of different directions, but you can't get there overnight.
We brought it back.
Yeah. You've got to be willing to opt in for the long haul. You will always, 29 years the year coming up for me. Actually, no, 30 years this year coming up for me. I had to go back and recount it because I've heard myself give different counts before. It will be 30 years in 2025 that I've been in this discipline.
What month? We're going to have a party.
Learning. I can't remember exactly. I have to go back and look at a couple of things. So I just say mid-year to be safe.
Okay, perfect.
But I'm still learning things. New things will always come up. You never arrive. I know people who are doctors. They're still learning. There's still something somewhere, some saw that needs to be sharpened.
Especially doctors. My goodness. There's new technology and medical advancements every week.
I was working for my first agency when the iPhone came out. I was already doing interactive TV. I was doing email management. We were doing intercept survey data analysis and synthesis. And we were doing all this stuff that was things I hadn't done 5 years prior to that. And so now the iPhone comes out and we all just looked at each other because, okay, we need to solve for this. Pushing pixels would not have, the people who are coming into UX today, the Figma jockeys, wouldn't have been able to do a thing had they been around. Because they're just pixel pushers. They're not problem solvers. They don't have a strategic mindset. And so that's when I learned for the first time that UX is pervasive. What applies to the website can be applied to mobile. It was soon
I love
thereafter.
that you say that. And now we're like 16 years later, like after the iPhone invention, and we're still not getting mobile, right? Like,
no,
somehow I want to like look at some of these juniors and be like, are you serious right now? Like, just because the seniors haven't figured it out doesn't mean that they're too stupid to figure it out. No, it means that the modality changes all the time and we're constantly adjusting to that. So maybe it's their perception. Actually, Elmarie, you gotta be bold and get in there because but like, seriously, what do you think about like when you see your peers? You've got 3 years under your belt. What do you think when you see your peers who are just like, nah, I'm totally a UX manager today? And you're like, what?
No, absolutely not. Very far away from that, so I wanted to also like, I oftentimes say it's when Darren was talking about doctors, for example, this is a discipline. I think that is very similar to that. We are learning every day as we go. that is a diagnostics type of role. So you're
Ooh,
That
looking
was
at
nice.
love that. Love that. Yes.
so
Yes.
you're looking at problems
Mm-hmm.
that evolve over time and the thing is like it is even more difficult to like really diagnose sometimes because it's a person utilizing a mobile device or a tablet or and that's why UX comes in so handy because we diagnose through methods, a really rigid methodology that proves to be effective at the time, at that day sometimes, because the next day we have like more data and we keep collecting that data to have, a robust understanding of what's happening.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, it's kind of like that. And that's the thing that that pisses off a lot of product managers. Is like, where are you getting this? Like, can you give me something? I'm like, dude, like I'm still working on figuring it out. And it can take 6 months, it can take 2 years. And that is the problem with all of these modalities that the quick and go, it cannot be like that because
Yep.
the problem is like what is the core issue? Are we solving the core issue? Are we getting to the point that people are actually engaging and feeling safe in a space too, like, or feeling like they can accomplish something? What are people's goals? And often, like most of the time, like nowadays with the tools and all that we use, like even social media or whatnot, like they have another purpose in mind for people. So, but at the end of the day, when I see a tool that truly functions and makes a process happen at this time, unfortunately, it's like Figma and the prototyping is always broken. And I'm getting frustrated, but yeah, like that's the thing. It's diagnosing that problem, and it takes a lot of time, effort,
Yes.
energy, and that it's not an easy thing that you can just pop up and say, hey, like here's the solution. What about the architecture? Sometimes redesigning a process requires a long haul of information architecture, of understanding what's happening behind the code.
Yes.
And there's a lot of things that people don't get. Like, it's like, oh yeah, like I don't need to do coding and I can just like build a website. It's like, yeah, you possibly do that, but if you don't understand the coding, you don't understand what's happening behind in the back end, how are you going to actually be effective too? It's like all of these layers of things that we have to see. We have to see what's happening in the business. Why do they want to solve that? How do we get to users and actually have a honest response? Because
Yes.
most of the time too, like they give, sometimes the stakeholders give you the people that they want to hear information from,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't want to get to the general audience. Like, what do the other people think?
The people that are actually going to use this product, wild.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, you just made me think of something. I'm going to interject a thought here as part of our convo. The mass rush of people that came in that say, oh, I like research. I want to do research. So they come in, especially the people who say, well, I want to do research because I don't like designing. And I laugh every time I hear that. But guess what? Guess what has to be designed? Research. You can't, you don't just get to, especially the whole PhD to UXR movement, where people thought you could just come in and just do this stuff. And academic research is a completely different animal than UX research. UX research needs to be turned around quickly. Academic research, some projects, 3 to 5 years. And then people are happy.
We don't have time for that. We're trying to make money tomorrow. So
and then you have to be careful because I'm a doctoral candidate right now. My chapter 3 of my dissertation just got done. I'm going through all of the rigors associated with what academic research is like. And academic research for a dissertation and academic research for a project that's associated with the university are different. Also, the timelines are different. Everything is different, but there's still this thing of integrity. There's an ethics component associated with it, and the stakeholders, as you mentioned, this is what you made me think about, Elmarie. The stakeholders, when they try to bring people in there that they know are going to validate the bias, That's not ethical. And the UX person has to be the one that pushes back. No, we're going to recruit people for this. We need to make sure that we get people in here that are going to be objective, but at the same time, there's a degree of subjectivity that is valuable. If you feel a certain way, we want to know, but we also need to make sure that the objectivity comes into play when we're looking at the tasks. Okay, that keeps it grounded. That's where we need to be objective. Can they perform the task? How fast are they performing the task? And then asking them how they felt about it. Is that really actionable? No.
Could you give it to me on a scale of 1 to 5? No.
No, and then, oh man, and then the Likert scales? The way that people misuse those?
Yeah.
Oh, on a scale of 1 to 5, was it very? Was it, oh, what was it? And then a 4 for one person, a 4 to another person, they're not necessarily equivalent to one another.
That's the thing.
So you've got to get into the qualitative aspect of it to find. You gave it a 4. Why did you give it a 4? And that information is going to be more valuable than the. I literally saw somebody once who said, "So which one do you like? Which button do you like? The green one or the blue one?" No joke. That was the research. That was the extent of the
whole
research.
research. No, that's preference testing.
That's not
at best.
research.
No.
And then they came back after they were done, and maybe they asked 20 people, which button do you like best? All the same question. And they came back and were talking about how exhausted they were. And I just, what?
What, you posted on LinkedIn and now you're exhausted? Kids these days, I had to walk uphill both ways in the snow. JK.
It's amazing. So
That is amazing.
And then the issue of the not understanding that research has to be designed, and then not understanding what the timelines are like. And then the PhD, the UXR folks, a lot of them come in and then they get around their same mutual admiration societies, if you will. They get around the same folks, and they don't understand the elements of diversity and how you need to get around a broader range of people in order to really validate where you're going. Because if you get around a bunch of other PhDs, a lot of whom came into UX to chase checks, they don't understand the discipline, they don't respect the discipline. They're chasing a check. They're not here because they don't realize.
I feel for them because they have way more student debt than I do. So like, I understand.
Yeah, I get it. And I say this all the time. You want to be in UX? Fine. Welcome. But you have to transition in order to occupy viable space. Don't just see in the age of the participation trophy. You don't want to be a participant trophy in something that still needs.
Did we not stop the participation trophies?
No,
everybody got
happening.
A hug. Are we done?
We're still happening.
Okay.
We lost our soccer game 20-0, but let's go get pizza and ice cream.
Like, hey, look, pizza and ice cream is a quality. Look, I will soothe my feelings with pizza and ice cream. Don't throw shade. Actually, this reminds me, like, Darren, I do not want to hijack the ask you anything,
Go for it.
But like, you and I are definitely going to have like an entire episode on like, this is exactly why I am literally, if this is a poker game, I'm pushing all of my chips into the center on this apprenticeship agency and the fact that we are building accessibility first. I think this is like the focus of the future because you can't get good at UX if you don't understand how to solve the basic problems of like the structural experience for people who don't have the same lived experience, the same physical abilities as you. And this is where I think it's the bread and butter. I think if I train somebody for a year to do boring, unsexy ARIA labeling and color contrast on websites. Like, girl, I'm not even talking about web apps. I'm not talking about mobile. They're not doing anything fun or sexy. They are making things more accessible for people with disabilities. And I think a year with me at, reasonable pay, it's not going to be good pay. It's going to be enough pay to get you experience. And I want to pay you to learn because I think that's the only way you're going to pay attention. And then you're going to be a really solid UX designer going forward because you can learn all the nuance. And by the time you've had a year of exposure of learning intentionally and recognizing I'm at an apprentice level, not I'm a UX designer, I want to interrupt myself and tell you that I want to watch your face while I say this, but the company that I left, we will name no names, but the most junior designer on the team, the UX manager, was here. They got laid off. I was asked to wander off and seek success elsewhere in March of this year. And the most junior, there's only two. I think they're both still there. The most junior, the one who had 1 month less experience than the other one, is now the UX manager of the team at 2 years experience. UX manager. So I'm just like, we need to stop with the title inflation, because half the time you're getting to senior and you don't actually know the basics of UX.
Yep.
You know the slick interface part, but again, UI is not UX. So like this apprenticeship agency, and I'm building it out loud. I want people to steal my model. It's not even stealing. I will give you all of my paperwork. I want people to do this. There's not enough folks who are building apprenticeship into these large companies. They're not doing it. They'd rather spend money on AI.
Yeah.
So for right now, I'm just like, I think this is a way to success in the future, but we're going to test and iterate, because that's one of my core values, both of the company and myself. Let's test and iterate. This may not be it, but I've been doing it now for almost a year, and I'm like, yep, I'm in. This is it.
So number one, you didn't hijack anything. I think that's wonderful. Number two, I was thinking the same thing. We need to have an episode where Maigen and I just talked. So I was already thinking that. So
Yeah, I honestly would love that, because in public, I would love for you to poke holes in it. That would be very important to me. You and someone else with serious seniority. Like, I want to be on the hot seat. I want you to ask, like, well, how are you going to have them do this and learn that and whatever? I genuinely believe that I cannot see everything myself, but I love to explain like the business model and just get people to go, no, you're crazy. And I'll be like, no, but hold on, I think there's more. Or genuinely humble and learn that, hey, that's not going to work, and we have tried it before. So try a different direction. Like, that would be valuable.
I am ecstatic about this. Another couple moments just for this, because as you were talking about that and you're thinking about this apprenticeship model, there's an intrinsic, I'm referring to it as an intrinsic element, because I didn't take time to apply the right words. For lack of better words in the moment, I'm going to call it an intrinsic benefit, is that a lot of people, I'm always concerned about people. If you want to come into UX, great. I was talking to somebody the other day. I talk to people about this often. I want to get to UX. You have time to have a conversation with me? I'm like, great. Well, start here. And then, we can do X, Y, and Z. And I just want to make sure the person said, I'm really interested. Like, that's where the intrinsic element is that I want to address, because by getting into an apprenticeship program and seeing where the rubber really meets the road, it helps people attain something they normally don't. And it weeds out the people who are just chasing checks, because you really get to gauge and develop that genuine passion, which is our secret sauce.
Yes.
That's our secret sauce.
Sorry, I hope I didn't scream in your ear. I'm like, yes.
That's from now. It's because this is what UX is really about. Here's the actual work. Here's the problem you're working on. They're not going through some fabricated, basically like a what was the word? The word slipped my mind there for the moment, but a simulated. That's the word I'm looking for.
Pretend project that we do for school.
A pretend project, which doesn't, and that's why when I'm teaching, I like to, when Elmarie was in my classes, I didn't design any of that, but I know the person who did, and they tried to make it as real world as possible. I graduated from the same program. I would see things when I was in class, and you could go back the next day and apply it. And that's one of the things I really love about that program. I teach at other programs, and I design my courses now for some of the programs that I teach in, and I always try to put this strong sense of realism as much as you can into the course, because the closer the person can get to being exposed to real world scenarios, that you can draw out that genuine passion that'll help the person be the real deal down the road. And then when a person is real, they don't become, as I like to talk about often, the posers, the retrosets, and the upstarts. Those people are dangerous. Those are the people that are, not only, you talk about the person 2 years and they're the manager. I've seen job postings now for UX director and UX manager with 2 years of experience. I saw one with
Oy.
1 year of experience. That's
Oh,
not
dear.
realistic. And those people are doing damage. They're not going to turn down the promotion when they get offered.
I mean, that company's not going to do awesome. Let's
No,
be
they're
real.
not. And but
Because
UX
they
is
don't know
too.
how to hire
Yeah,
appropriately.
They don't know. They don't know. And I'm tying that into UX maturity. You know, now I've got
That's
people
true.
who are now trying to say we need to ignore UX maturity. I'm like, no, no, no. That's why we're in the shape we're in, because it has been ignored, or it has not been aligned with. And then we suffer as a result of that. So this is something that's it's really critical. I think that your model, and I've only heard a little bit about it, and of course we're going to poke holes because that's what we do. We're paid to be anal, and a lot of
We're trying to
people,
find the core solution. Is this the right solution? I literally just posted on LinkedIn while we've been talking, because Elmarie, you really, that was a really brilliant way to compare it. Like, I know there's going to be people who push back and be like, we are not like doctors. And I'm like, we're doctors in that we use diagnostic analysis to figure out the core issue. We don't wave a magic wand to reach a solution. And like, that is chef's kiss. I should credit that to you. I feel like I massaged it a little bit, but yeah, we use diagnostic analysis. It's literally the first thing that you do. If it's to pick up your mouse and go to Figma, you're already doing it wrong.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that too, because a lot of times, I mean, I did a talk. I still can't get the recording, so I'm probably going to do a show on it. It's called UX and the Good Doctor, and I took the Hippocratic Oath and used the Hippocratic Oath to illustrate how we can operate ethically in UX.
Yes.
And a lot of times,
Darren, I want to see this.
And people will say, why do you compare? Why is it that when people talk about UX, they talk about the medical field? Why is it that they talk about all these other fields that are nowhere the same?
Because we can harm people.
Yes.
Yes. And and this goes back to the analytical mind associated with the need to excel. If you want to really excel in UX, you have to have an analytical mind, not anal retentive. Anal is the root word of analytics. Some people, you say anal, they get scared. No, I don't want to be anal. I don't want to be like that. No, I mean, it just means that you're very analytical. But we dissect things. That's at the core of who we are. It's at the core of what we do. And when you take the medical field and you look at it, lawyers, same thing. The lawyer field comes up. When you look at what they're doing at the lowest common denominator, we are in direct alignment with the medical field. Because what they do, the diagnosis, man, what a great term to have used.
And then the test and, let's see if that works. This is why, was one of your favorite shows House? When he was figuring out what, your face just lit up. I knew that was a good show for you.
Every season of House. It took me about 2 weeks. I watched every episode. What a dynamite show. I love and all of
that's
those,
UX. We're diagnosing and then we're testing, experimenting, hypothesizing, going, oh, that didn't work out so great. And luckily, we're not dealing with people who are literally dying, but we do have an impact on people. Yes, we are. And some of us have an impact on like how much money people spend and whether or not they make good choices. And like, it's not our responsibility to prevent them from spending money they don't have, but like we can tie into that impact and should think of the moral decisions that we're putting people into.
That reminded me of a post in Reddit and how this UX designer was hired to do a gambling application. So it was a debate. It was a big debate about how are you, like, should I take this job? I'm struggling right now. Everybody's freaking struggling in UX. So that's like, that's another thing too. But yeah, it's one of those things that they were debating. It was an ethical debate. And that reminded me of the book. I think it's from G's, it's about the criticism of like how UX has impacted and how people from our profession have gone to jail. Because there was a it was a G. Garrett. That's his name.
Wow. Gotta see this.
In the book, there was a part where it had an example where it said like this UX designer created. He was completely pushed to do this, to literally design something so quick for this card part.
Wow.
And it failed. and it killed a bunch of people, and they had to remove the car from
Whoa.
from the market and then redo the thing and everything. And when they investigated, of course, like the executive and the UX designer who were up there in that ladder, he went to jail.
Oh,
He or she, I don't know.
my God. That is.
Yeah, find that book. Let me know.
Ooh, you made me think too about how, and we're way off the rails, but that's fine. It's going to be a convo.
Totally okay.
We'll come back to the next question here shortly. You made me think about the time that when I worked for one nameless company, I had to pick that there's a time to mention the company name, there's a time to not to, and everybody in the company, I was a senior practitioner in the company, and somebody's going to figure this out. So, whoop-de-doo. At the time, 384,000 employees. That's a lot of people. And they wanted to make sure that everybody had the same training for UX. So no matter where you were, and again, I was a senior practitioner, entire organization, but everybody still got, I don't care what you know, you got to go through this training. And so we were in Silicon Valley. The one time I got to go to Silicon Valley and hang out. And in between, while we were in training, of course, you got breaks. And some of the people that were there worked in the Silicon Valley office, and they wanted to show us some of their work. So where we were doing the training was, a little room off to the side there. So we go over, and they're showing us these dashboards. They were designing dashboards for autonomous vehicles. Exciting stuff, right? And they were showing us, and we did this, and when they change to this mode, then this is the design. And it's like a working thing. This is not like in Figma or anything like that. It was an actual, we saw the prototype of the dashboard. We were standing there looking at it. And of course, you know me, they're showing me all this stuff. And so like, hand goes up slowly. Excuse me, you said that when the driving mode or certain things change from one function to another, that's what shows up, right? And it was just an icon, and it would change color. I know Maigen's just shaking her head.
I'm like, as an accessibility person,
accessibility mode. Bing, 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 bing.
Yeah.
I said, you mean to tell me that when it changes from one mode to another, it only changes color? I said, so what is that right? Yeah, that's right. And chest all
They're like,
out,
it's so pretty
proud.
and slick, and it.
Yeah. And I said, what about colorblind people?
Yeah.
How are they supposed to know? And then everybody froze, and they started looking back and forth at one another. And I just left. I knew, okay, I might do my little. I'm old.
Like,
I'm an
does
old.
it even have a label?
right here?
I'm the
Yeah.
I'm the old cartoon guy, so I did the Snagglepuss exit stage right, and I
Yeah.
left. And
Exit stage right.
and I was, because of things like that, and I also gave my feedback. I got to throw this in there too. My feedback on the training was, hey, we're trying to get everybody on board and make sure we all know what certain fundamentals about UX. Why did we not talk about information architecture? There's no emphasis on information architecture in any of our projects. And I just heard about a project that we lost $1 million because of the information architecture. And somebody, they showed me what's going on. I figured it out. We're talking about it. And they actually kept me from getting the same role that people are getting now with a year of experience. I was blocked from applying for it because they didn't want to be accountable to the things I was talking about. No, we're not going to be able to roll out our autonomous dashboard if you just let Darren Woods see it. So that kind of thing. It's just sort of amazing. Sad stuff. So that's life and death. You roll that out, a person that's colorblind, the mode has changed, and they have colorblind.
They have no idea.
That they have
That's
no
it.
idea. And now what? So now you've got, and some of us, I've done medtech work. In UX. I've done work on vascular access. I've done work for autonomous pharmacy. For UX, people need to be able to recognize when it's time to give a patient certain meds. We don't have time for errors. I mean, think about the inmates are running the asylum, and that example in the front of the book by Alan Cooper, and the plane crashes. Very morbid way to start a book, but it gets your attention because these people died because of a simple UX problem. They should never have been deployed because the people in the cockpit couldn't decipher things because it wasn't intuitive enough. And the cognitive load was too much. That's what we look at. That's what we do.
Yeah.
That's our bread and butter. It's not about making things pretty. Pretty kills if it's not usable.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that. It's amazing stuff. I wish more people, you can't just come over here and chase a check. You got to take this thing to heart, and you've got to really fall in love with it, or you're going to become a dangerous individual.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's because we're very parallel with the medical field, the legal field. Hey, doggy. The medical field. And we need to understand that as we take on more and more responsibilities, as we go from company to company, we need to understand it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the dog agrees. So
Yeah.
go for it, Maigen.
Oh, I was actually like punctuating the dog, but now that I've got the floor, I'll actually hand over the microphone to Elmarie.
Yes,
I
Elmarie.
feel like I let us off with a question. What question did you bring to ask?
Yes.
For Darren to ask me
Yeah.
anything.
So this is a great segue into going from the UX and the people that think that UX is one thing, and mostly related with the beauty of it, with the UI, with the slick designs, with, oh my gosh, I want that. Give me that. Like that scholars pop, make it pop. That was the favorite thing
Yeah.
that they used to tell me, make it pop, Elmarie. And I'm like, okay, I'll make it pop. Well, I don't know what's that gonna solve, but okay. And you keep saying like that over and over and over again in LinkedIn, where is supposedly what LinkedIn is a place that you can realize, a reliable place for you to find information for your profession. So, and being like when you have a background and you are educated in a certain way, and you started to notice things that are not truly aligned with your philosophy of your role, and what you are truly like, what's factual, what's not factual, and you start to see the differences in that. When that happens, it's kind of like it's an ethical battle too, because you're trying to contrast and and compare, like, how am I going to be able to really succeed in this career when all I'm seeing is kind of like the opposite of what I've been taught in the sense of the true definition of what UX is.
Yes.
So my question is, like, when did you started to notice that shift in UX towards more a UI-centered approach, Darren?
I started to know, I think the first thing that comes to mind is I started to say that UX was under siege in 2011. And it's funny, something else we were talking about at the rendezvous, which was just yesterday, was that the perceptions of UX are really interesting, because you have people that are coming in and they think that it's more visual, but UX really, I mean, I was quiet. The part that I really want to mention first, I was quiet until then. I started doing UX work in 95. I didn't, other than the people I was working with, all I used to do was just share. Oh, here's a great article. I'll share this. That's all I did on social media. I didn't share any original thoughts, nothing. The discipline is fine. We're on our way. We just continue growing. There's nothing to clean up. There was no misinformation. You could go to any conference. You could talk to anybody, anywhere, about anything that was UX related, and it was fine. It was safe. But in 2011, I started noticing something that was the same thing. I used to be in instructional design full-time and in UX part-time. And I left instructional design because I noticed something. Unqualified people were starting to be called upon to do our work. Leaders didn't understand instructional design, aka training. They didn't understand it. They didn't understand the science of it. They didn't understand what it took to design courses. Excuse me. They didn't understand what it took to get things right. They didn't understand how we fit into the ROI of business. And when you started seeing more and more people who were, to them, training was just put together a PowerPoint and then read every note from every slide. And that became training. As a person that was very technologically oriented from a training perspective, I'm in trouble. And I used to sit on one of Macromedia's advisory boards for one of their products way back then. And like, I need to get out of here. And I was already doing what we weren't calling it UX yet, but I love this. I'm going to go in this direction. So that's what I did. And I stopped doing it part-time and started doing it full-time. And I abandoned instructional design, even though I came full circle when I started teaching again, but that's another story for another time. In 2011, when I started seeing that shift, along with that shift, the direct answer to your question is that's when it began. Between 2011 to 2014, and I love how somebody said, David Snodgrass mentioned a shout out to him, and some of the stuff the downloads we got at that event yesterday was just phenomenal. And he was talking about how when you used to have more and more print graphic designer positions and you would see more graphic design positions everywhere, when the shift to digital really increased exponentially, then you started seeing more digital design positions and less straight up graphic designer roles. And you didn't see web designer roles anymore. Everything was shifting more toward the UX side of the house, where they wanted to do more of what we do and not just that front end development, all that kind of stuff. So that's when I started talking. I started getting out there because I started seeing what was going on. I started seeing the posers. I started seeing the retrofits. I started seeing the upstarts, and I start getting vocal. And that's when I noticed nobody said UX UI in 2008, 2009, 2010, 2000. You start seeing it around 2011, 2012, 2013. I had it in my title for only one time in my career, and it was in 2013. And I just sort of like, UX UI, I didn't worry about it. I didn't think it was an issue. Man, flashing back on that, like, please change my job title. But people started equating. I didn't know how to explain UX to anybody. Even in 2013.
Do we still know how to? My dad still thinks I work in IT.
Well, yeah, a lot of people do. But today I can. And I can do it very succinctly. And I can do it in a way that resonates with the person I'm explaining it to. But in 2013, I still couldn't explain what UX was. And I love how David says, because we did all the things that was hard to explain, that you did all of those things. But now I say, hey, what is UX? Hey, I make things easy. I say I'm a design psychologist. I say that. I make things as easy to use as possible. I find the sweet spot between user needs, business needs, and constraints. And I'm done. And I've explained it. And if they want to know more, then I'll tell them more, and I'll give them some examples. But by no means am I the person that comes to make things pretty. And I will tell people that. But that's what people think. That's who they think we are. Because they never had personal UX maturity managed properly, and this massive influx between 2011 to 2014 of graphic designers who were faking their way into UX roles. When I was a manager in 2015 and they gave me the stack of 300 interviews or resumes to look at, lots of those people were visual designers because they saw the Forbes article about how this is an up and coming field and they wanted to get in. And so they started I saw people changing their resume. They'd never done UX a day in their life. And they would change their resume to make it look like they've been doing UX for 5 years. They'd never done it a day in their life. They had no idea. And so today in 2024, 2025, we still have this problem. People think we're visual designers. They think that we're only there to make things pretty. They think that they don't realize the work that goes into getting this work done. They don't realize that when you look at user experiences from a micro level, oh my God, the touch points are in the thousands easily. I once made 50 changes to an interface and my boss said, "You didn't do anything." I made 50 changes. He wouldn't have known until he did the micro examination of the work. But he also had no idea what I was doing. He thought I was there to make things pretty. The funny thing is, the people who think that we make things pretty and fake their way into the UX world, when they encounter somebody like me, like Maigen, like you, Elmarie, and we're doing actual UX work, they do recognize what we did and they're immediately threatened, and then the workplaces become hostile. And
You know,
people
that's
don't
so
realize
interesting that you say this because I've recently made a new friend, I would say, with a chief of staff at Google. And we talk about some of the stuff that she teaches in her future proof your tech career. And now, like, as a chief of staff, it has almost nothing to do with UX, except everything is UX. And one of the things
Yes.
that she has, it's a product that she sells, and I think it's $50, and that probably feels like for people who are early in their career, but it's called the project tracker, how to work out loud. And I think it is one of the most valuable things I've ever seen because we in the UX world, and like what you were just saying, even in seniority, we struggle to make it clear to people who are not in UX what it is that we do and why it's
Yeah.
valuable what we do. So she has this project tracker thing, and basically it's like, what's the KPI that is, the company-wide KPI that the work you're doing is associated with? What have you actually done? And basically it just gives you something to talk about every week in your one-on-one, as opposed to like, I don't know, my feelings were hurt last week and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, here's what I'm doing so that you can say this to your upper level management, why I'm valuable, why the project I'm working on has an ROI, why it's associated with our business goals. So like, if anything, like, honestly, I need to introduce you. Her name is Sally Ivester, and she's super smart. And this right here is literally like the game changer, I think, for people who are early in their career. Like, how do you know what to talk about in your one-on-one? And
Yeah.
how do you make your work visible to people when it's kind of hard to describe to some people what we do?
Yeah.
I will send you an email and connect you, because I think that would be a huge learning moment for
That
folks.
would
How
be,
do you vocally talk about what you do?
yeah. And man, you made me think about the UX cycle of excellence model that I have for us. Have you folks seen that?
Yeah.
And
But we will happily listen to it again.
because people have to, if they're going to thrive in UX, they need to first define the discipline properly. So I make that the first step. That thing that we couldn't do for years, and it hurt us because when I could not define the discipline the entire time, and I have to own it. We have to, anything that wasn't going right in our career at any point in time in our career, we have to own that. And
Yeah.
that same thing goes for me. I have to eat my own dog food, as they say. And during that entire time, even though I did represent the discipline well, there were times I didn't represent it correctly. And each one of those was a missed opportunity. And somebody might think, well, Darren, what is it worth to look at something that you did in your mind that you did wrong way back then? What is it worth today? It helps to reinforce the importance of doing it right today. It helps me to maintain a sense of accountability in my mind about what didn't go right back then. And it helps me reinforce the importance of that when I'm teaching and mentoring today. So I embed that when I'm teaching and mentoring people today. Define the discipline correctly. Step 2, ground yourself in the fundamentals of the discipline. And then getting back to Elmarie's question, when a person does that, graphics has nothing to do with with either of those two things. And
Absolutely.
I love bringing in Jesse James Garrett and kudos to the work that he does. The guy, he's one of the OGs that does understand and is concerned about the state of the discipline today. Him, Alan Cooper. There's some people that are, and they do, and I'm thankful for that, because a lot of people were too silent back then, and that's part of how we got where we are. But Jesse James Garrett modeled the 5 planes that he created way back when. And I like to say there's 5 planes, and the presentation layer, the UI, is the last plane. So we spend at least 80% of our time doing a lot of other stuff that has nothing to do with the presentation layer. So how in the world then can we flip it and think that we're just making things look pretty? And again, even borrow from Don Norman, people think that something that looks great works well. They make an assumption, but ethically we have to operate beyond that. And we have to make sure, okay, I do want it to look good. I do. But I want it to work better than it looks. In same scenarios, I don't want to create an experience that implies that it's going to meet your needs, that implies that it's trustworthy and reliable, only for the person to get into it at the micro level and find out that it's a piece of garbage.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. I think it's ethically improper. And a lot of people in the discipline, coming into the discipline, they don't know anything about any of that. They just want to check. This is not McDonald's. This is not a fast food experience. Lives are at stake. They are. And we need to understand that. So, and when it's not life as a whole, it's quality of life. If nothing else, everything we do from a UX perspective impacts quality of life. And we need to recognize when we sit down at the computer, even if you're just sitting at Figma, you're about to impact somebody's quality of life. What are you going to do about it? The power is in your hands. What are you going to do? So it's not about a check anymore. It's about how you impact quality of life. And to have that responsibility, that's a huge honor. That's a huge honor, but people don't see it that way. And they design garbage, and they're order takers.
Yeah.
And we have a problem. But we have time we have had so much conversation, and I think it's been phenomenal, and I think people are going to get a lot out of this. And I thought we were going to get into 3 questions apiece, but we did cover multiple topics. We did. So if we could do, as some people would say, though Debbie said, lightning round. Maigen, do you have another question? We got to move quickly on this one, though.
Ooh, how do we, last second question would be, how, this is actually something that's very interesting. How does an early career designer know when they need to stick to the process that they understand, and when do they need to be sensitive to time constraints and recognize, like, this is when we need to drop this part of the process? Because also what you've been taught, and most of the folks I've worked with, are from boot camps, and they teach the design thinking process. In fact, the book that I've been writing, my publisher has it. It allegedly will be edited and published by March. I'll tell you about it. Don't worry. I'll shout about it on
Congrats.
LinkedIn. Thank you. It's about practical UX. Like, what is a practical use of the things that we do? And one of them, like, it's the process of, like, how do you get experience if no one will give you a chance to get experience?
Yes.
So I teach this, but one of them is the design thinking process was created as a way for IDEO to, or as I understand it, is a way for IDEO to, like, run a client through their process. People. And then it was somebody's TED Talk, Tim Brown, I think it was, from IDEO, did the TED Talk, and then there was a book, and everybody's like, oh, it's the design thinking process. It's a thing, and everyone must know it. But you're like, y'all, we don't always have time. And these early career designers come out, and when you drop them into something that they can't start at the beginning of the design thinking process with, they have no idea how to move forward. They're just frozen. They're just like, I don't know, if I can't empathize with people, how do I know what to do next? And I'm like,
yep.
Okay.
You make me think about, and I did an episode on this, but it was one of the earlier episodes in the show. It's something I call UX train hopping. And this is one of those things, big movie person. I think you folks know that about me. I'm a big movie person. And I hated the movie, but I got something out of it. And it was the Divergent. So we're going to see Divergent. I can't remember what they're called, but they, it was on the tip of my tongue. These are the people, they're very rambunctious, and they keep running Dauntless. They're called Dauntless. This a group of people. And you see them constantly jumping on trains to get where they're going. And the train is moving, and that's when, it's amazing. I'll be sitting, this has happened to me multiple times. I'm watching a movie, and I completely, especially when the movie's bad, I completely forget about the movie because something happened in the movie. I have what people will call an epiphany, I guess. And that's what that's what we do. How often do we really get in at the beginning of a project? Not very often.
Right. And it's the first thing they teach in a boot camp is how to make a greenfield project. And I'm like, the reason your portfolio sucks is because any business person with an ounce of sense can look at that idea and go, well, you've just told me in 7 different ways that you're not qualified to solve this problem because you don't actually understand the problem. You understood this much and you decided to make a project from it. In the boot camp, we told you that was okay. Yeah, do that. You want a babysitting app for strangers when you're shopping for houses in another city, and a stranger's going to watch your kids? Yeah, go make that up. And I was like, I'm going to bite this because I'm not a business coach for these students. That was my first inkling that like, I don't know that this boot camp is going to be for me.
But they happy path. A lot of people happy path everything, and there is no happy path.
Oh, yeah.
So for me, it's like the vast majority of my career, unless when I was freelancing, of course, I was in there at the beginning because I was running everything and I had to, I'm doing certain things. So yeah, I got in at the beginning. But when I worked for someone, it's not very often that I get to happy path something. So just like those people in the movie, the train is moving.
Got to get on it.
Matter of fact, one episode, I literally talked about finding success, if I remember correctly, something on the line of finding success at the 12th hour. When you get in at the last minute, you can still bring value. We have to get good at, okay, at what point, this project is they've already made certain decisions. They want to bring you in to get some value out of it. They want to have UX input. Number one, get good at finding low-hanging fruit. Just spend time. You don't even have to work on a project to do this. You can just do almost like a simulated. This is where simulation does come into play. I used to like going and just looking at websites and then just go do a heuristic analysis. Nobody asked you to. Just do it.
That's exactly it. That's what finds the low-hanging fruit.
Yep,
This is why I'm like focusing
exactly.
on accessibility. I'm like, what's the smallest possible change we can make to this interface to make it better for people? It's not shifting around every step they take. It's maybe, I don't know, increasing market share by making it visible to people with color vision deficiency.
Yes, reducing
not
time
even
to
that hard.
task. Reducing time to task.
Yes.
Finding things that nobody would see. And I'm constantly being told, how did you see that? Or asked, how did you see that? Well, this is what I do. And when I do a heuristic analysis, and for those listening, when you say heuristic analysis, a lot of times people's mind immediately goes to Nielsen Norman. That is not the only heuristic model that's out there. Matter of fact, I think that Abby Covert's model, which is labeled information architecture, heuristics, is the best model and the easiest to implement. And it also comes with a set of examples as to how you would apply each. And there's like 10 different categories, and they show you why it's relevant. And she pulls from Nielsen Norman. She pulls from other models, and she references them in the illustration. I bring up findings. I use hers. I use by Susan Weinchick and Dean Barker. There's different ones. I look at them. And when you use heuristic models and you really immerse yourself in the heuristic models, the more you do it, the more they start to meld together and they just become a part of you. So then it's not, I'm just going to do this Nielsen Norman thing. I don't do that anymore. And the more research you do, because heuristics are proven principles, best practices, this is what they are. So now you know what works, you know what doesn't through those models, or even Tognazini's interaction design principles. That's really a set of heuristics. Bring those in, and then I generate my findings, then I generate my recommendations, and then I will, if I have time, I will illustrate, this is how it will look if you implement it. And I'll create visuals, whether they're mock-ups or wires. This is how it would look. Usually at that level, it's got to be higher fidelity. So I'll generate, if you do this, this is what it will look like. And if you do this, this is the change in the task flow. That's what I like to do when I'm doing work. Because now people can relate, even if they're not UXers, they can relate to the recommendations. Especially when you look at, this is the impact it'll have at the user level. And then we can go beyond that. This is the impact it'll have at the business level.
Yes.
When we made some changes in one project and we reduced time to task by 75%, people could relate to that.
Yes.
People could relate to that. And so find the low-hanging fruit. That's the best thing you can do. It's the easiest thing you can do. Find the low-hanging fruit in this scenario, apply it, get buy-in, do whatever you have to do, navigate the politics, because you have to do that. Figma can't help you navigate the politics. You need to have the skills, the EQ, the business savvy to be able to do that. If you don't have it, then eventually people are not going to be able to communicate with you, and you're going to be on on the block for layoffs, because which is going to probably it may still be a thing after everybody they got they're confident in laying off UX people and still surviving. So there's a level of confidence that businesses have. So we have to be there to illustrate what we bring to the table. We have to illustrate our ROI. We have to illustrate our relevance constantly. And the ability to generate these low-hanging fruit, you can come in at the 12th hour and do that. Or some people say 9th hour. I think I said actually 9th hour on that show. You can do that. And don't come in there saying, oh, it'll take me 3 months. They don't want to hear that. You can do a
Nope.
heuristic analysis and be done by the end of the week if you can concentrate on it, if you can be dedicated to it. So there are ways to do it. And then get skilled at it. Again, train hopping. Learn how to jump on a moving train without hurting yourself, and without making the discipline look bad, and bringing value that the business loves. I've done it my entire career. Anytime I've had an opportunity to do it, because sometimes they do not give you an opportunity because UX maturity is that bad. So I don't want to create this thing that this can always be successful. There are times that it's not. And when you're in an organization where UX maturity is lower, you have more of a challenge. So then you have to try to learn how to navigate that. And so asterisk, how do you navigate that, Darren? I want to know how you navigate that. So somebody who's listening is thinking that, so I'm just going to throw that out there. Always make sure that you have a champion. Know who the leaders are that are championing for UX in an organization. Always make sure that they know what you're doing. Always make sure that they know what it is that you are prescribing and how you're going to bring value, because they will have conversations with people that you cannot and will not, and they will actually help to secure your status and your stability in the organization where you don't have the ability to campaign for such.
Yeah.
So it has nothing to do with Figma. Figma, you cannot push a button and Figma jumps out of the computer and runs around the company and finds all of your champions. You have to do that, you lazy lima bean. You have to do that. You have to identify who those people are. You have to do that legwork, which means that's why I talked about when they do the work in the apprenticeships, the genuine part of the work comes out, because you have to be as genuine as possible to really make the impact that you need to make. You cannot be an actor. You cannot be a UX theater performer and achieve the same things as a genuine practitioner of the discipline. You cannot do it.
Yeah.
So that's how you do it. That's how you do it. Find the low-hanging fruit faster. Come in at the 12th hour, 9th hour, however you put it, whatever your way is to express it. And that's the best way to do it. And always have that in your toolbox, because you're going to need to lean on it a lot.
Yep.
Because people don't give you the time to do UX work the way you want. And eventually, when UX maturity goes up, along with that comes more time to do the work. Comes with it. All right, Elmarie, it's your
Yes,
time.
it's amazing everything you've shared. I'm here mesmerized, like, yes, taking notes. But yeah, so adding to that, there's that the UX maturity is definitely a big subject, especially with corporations or organizations that's starting to know the meaning of it, or just trying to like wrap around their heads about like, hey, how can I make UX in my organization? And for example, in the past, I have done a lot of decks,
Yeah.
for them to understand the process, like heuristic analysis, what is this and why is it valuable for the business? And, having like assets and showcasing assets like that, where with, the process, how can the process be optimized? And, depending on the audience, like the audience is extremely important too. Like, who am I going to be presenting to? Sometimes like crafting your decks for different audiences as well, and taking that into consideration. Because when you're talking with the devs, it's very different how you're talking with the
Yes.
stakeholders, executives, and PMs
Yes.
or whatnot. So also watching out the language of how you're communicating all
Mhm.
your findings and your design work as well. But I want to ask a little bit of a question from here, because what if also, let's say the stakeholder doesn't truly get, even though you're trying to simplify it, as much as you can. I've been told before, don't solve this issue. Don't like how can someone junior navigate something like that when you're constantly being brought to like, hey, that's the kind of messaging that you're getting, like so it's like, don't try to solve like these recommendations, how am I going to take this? And I try to explain to them, it's like, hey, this is how you can enhance the process or whatnot, and these are some of the steps that you need to take. And sometimes I will even go further than that. I will investigate how would the business profit from this situation, and giving them a little bit of the PM mindset as well, because a lot of times, like in my case, there was a time that there was no PM, so I had to kind of act like one too, and I don't have the financials or anything like that, but just a little bit of how can design or the research improve certain process. But what about reluctant stakeholders, like that they don't truly want to pursue what you found out, or your recommendations?
Oh man. Yeah, that happens, unfortunately, sometimes. And I think part of it, I'm going to overlap a little bit, because one of the ways, I mean, we're not heard. I got to say this, because people keep painting a picture, this rose-colored glasses picture that UX is thought of very highly in every organization, and we're well received, and people, 100% of what we say, they listen to. That couldn't be further from the truth. I always like to say that if you're heard 65% of the time in any organization, that's reason to have a potluck. Because it's the percentages where we are embraced, called upon, respected, valued, on average, it's not very high. And it doesn't matter. I almost walked away from the discipline in 2008 because I had my fill of it. I was very frustrated with always doing something and having people blow off what you do. You bend over backwards. I was known as being the most detail-oriented person. That I used to generate, a person told me the most detail-oriented documentation. And we used to have to do annotated wireframes. So you did the wireframes, they had to put the little numbers everywhere and then talk about how everything's going on. You got your measurements and your timing and all that. We had to do all that stuff. And I was told I was very detail-oriented. And so you jump through all these hoops, you do all this great research, you bend over backwards only for people to just blow you off.
Yeah.
Not because what you did was incorrect, but because it just didn't match their biases. It didn't match the decision that they had already made without you. And so that's where that champion comes back into play. Because there are times you're just not good enough. And what you bring to the table is just not going to be embraced. And we have to have people who are champions for UX. We have to have partners outside of our team, outside of our group. There has to be a commitment to relationship building, or you will not have that. You will not
survive if you can't build a
Yeah.
relationship. It's literally like the TV show Survivor.
Yep. You need to know who those people are that love UX, that embrace UX, that have got to have UX. And I remember the time that I did some design for automotive OEMs. When there's a new vehicle, they would have a reveal project, and you're telling people, hey, this vehicle is coming. And then when the vehicle comes, and you have a launch project, it's okay, the vehicle is here, you can buy it now. And so we're going through all of these things, and we went through the reveal for a vehicle that was being reintroduced to the public. And they had stopped making this vehicle for years. They're bringing it back. Big multi-million-dollar, right, billion-dollar undertaking. Just this humongous, dollars on top of dollars attached to this thing. And so I go through my standard Jesse James Garrett, because no matter where I work, I still do a Jesse James Garrett. I still use the 5 planes. I just think it's a very logical way to work, and I can retrofit it into however they're doing the work. But I know that we need to do those things. So I go through all my paces, and I present my wireframes. I walk everybody through it, and everybody says, great, this is wonderful for the reveal project. But back then, they used to have this thing called the Flash Site of the Week, where people were always trying to get this award if you had a great Flash site, and people were getting all these all these acclamations and such, and they wanted to get it. And so they say, yeah. And then they ignored everything I did because they're trying to get the flash site of the week. So they ignored everything that I said, and they did it their own way. And I was forced to make sure that my wireframes got retrofitted to match what they were doing. And the reveal site failed because they had the funding with the little cursors that were spinning around and all this other kind of stuff. And the navigation was hard to figure out. And so we go through all those, we jump through all these paces. We get ready to do the launch. Everybody knew it was a failure. And we get ready to do the launch. Now it's time. They're going out to Mojave Desert, and they're comparing the vehicle with BMW and with Audi and all this other kind of stuff. And they're making all these videos, and they come back and they say, okay, now we're going to do these videos. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. How are we going to proceed? Okay, Darren, come back with your wireframes. So knowing how we failed and understanding what happened, the feedback that we got, I modified our approach just a tad, and I made sure that the navigation was similar to the parent site. I made sure that the connection between this standalone, this microsite, was that the connection was clear, even though you knew you were on a different site. Without getting into a whole bunch of detail here, I did the presentation, and everybody did the same thing. Yeah. Oh, great. The product owner, I built the relationship. I said, I had to say this. The product owner that I had a strong relationship with, he knew everything I was doing. We had walked through everything. We had a lot of great conversations. He told them, he said, he was the one that helped us to have success. He said, and I want you guys, you third-party folks that worked on the previous site, want you to know this time, we're going to do exactly what Darren says. It was he put his foot down because they were going to run off and try to get it. They got Web's flash site of the week. They didn't care that people couldn't use the site and that the company was going to lose a lot of money. But he was tied directly to this automotive OEM company, this manufacturing company. He had people he had to answer to. He made sure we did the right thing. It was the relationship that we had that made that work. Because I could not, even though I own the user experience, if I said we need to do what I'm recommending this time, people don't listen to the UX person. We're nobody to most folks. And folks need to understand that. Today, in general, we're nobody. And that doesn't mean that we're nobody, but we don't carry the same weight. When I was working on an internet site for a Fortune 50 company, we were redesigning the internet site, and I go through my paces, like I always do, I still do to this day, and I thought we were all set with version 2 of the wireframes. And they say, yep, we like everything you've done here, but we got some other stakeholders. Fast forward to the end of the story, where we're on version 48 of the wireframes, and every time I presented an updated version of the wireframe, they brought in as many as 50 new stakeholders to review a new set of wireframes. And we get to version 48, and version 48 is identical almost to version 2. We went through 46 versions of wireframes for absolutely nothing. And so we didn't have that same dynamic that caused us to just get things done. Oh, by the way, that reveal site or that launch site, best site in the history of that company's history at the time. That's how successful that was. With this one, it actually ran me out of the company. I'm like, I'm done. I can't go through 46 versions of wireframes just because of the politics and all this stuff you folks do. And there was no champion. There was nobody that put their foot down. There was nobody who had the value of UX, who valued what I was saying, and it gave me the weight that I needed to get my job done the right way. It simply wasn't. It didn't exist. So it's about the relationships, because you're not going to be heard. I know this is a long answer, but I hope people appreciate this, because this is it. I'm trying to give people as much information as they can as they need to understand this. But the short version is build relationships. You're not going to be heard all the time. Don't allow that. Don't take it personally. Don't allow it to trigger you falling out with the discipline. Just let it go off your sleeve, roll down your. That's why I say EQ is critical. If you're going to thrive in UX, you have to excel at emotional intelligence, because everything's not going to go well. Everything's not going to go your way. And you need to be able to navigate that when it happens. It's going to be. And so what are you going to do when it happens? So be ready to navigate that. You can do your best work and have it cast aside. You can have it cast aside. And if your best work is cast aside, that doesn't mean you've done anything wrong. Now, do you know that? Because nobody else may be there to tell you. You have to know enough. And you mentioned if that happens with a junior, I would hope that a junior has a more senior person they can go to, a genuine senior. A person who's a poser, a retrofit, or an upstart will have no answers. No answers for you. And a lot of times, those people know they don't know. They know they don't qualify, and they're just in self-preservation mode. And they will leave you out, hanging, basically speak, out there with nothing. Bring nothing to the table. And so you have to be ready to manage that, because that comes a lot of times. You have to learn how to manage up, especially if you have an unqualified UX leader. You have to learn how to manage up, or a cowardly UX leader. I've had that before in my career. You can have a cowardly UX leader who's so busy. I can hear that purring.
Can you? Oh my gosh. She's
No, that's
literally
okay.
sitting right here, like,
It's
pay
okay.
attention to me.
For a minute, I heard that
Doing
I heard that purring, and I didn't realize what it was. I forgot that we got photobombed by the cat, and I was like, "Oh man, do I
He's
need
idling
to
out there.
eat?" I thought I need to eat or something. The way that no, it's purring. That's too long of a stomach gurgle. That could, yeah, but it's the kitty. But yeah, we gotta be able to. We have to know how things move, and then know how to respond and react and manage ourselves. But self-awareness is critical, because if you don't know who you are, if you don't know what you bring to the table, it's very easy to take somebody's response to what you did personally, and now you're going to fix something that's not broken, and you're going to run into a problem, and that's just not a good thing. You don't want to be in that position. And get around some smart UXers. If you don't have that in your organization, have somebody you can talk to. That's why we do the Kaizen UX Rendezvous. Talk to people. We're available. Everybody can't make it at that time, but some people, they wouldn't. If they didn't work on Friday, they wouldn't come. And then they gravitate toward the coddlers. And the coddlers are going to get you hurt. and you can either recognize the wisdom in that and listen, or you could ignore people like me, because I'm not in this for me. I do this for the discipline. I'm going to retire in X number of years, and then what?
I'm like, that's a lie. You know you're going to stay around forever.
Oh no! Oh, the clock's ticking.
Good. I hope there's a beach and a mango margarita waiting for you.
No, I'll end up writing books, but I won't.
Of course.
Yeah. But that's my answer. A long answer and a short answer to that.
Love it.
So,
Thank you.
but
Yeah.
folks, we're gonna wrap up there. This has been dynamite. We're a good. Oh my God. We're a
It's
good
a happy
hour and
new
a
year.
half.
2025 is going to be a good year.
But folks are gonna love this, and this is the kind of stuff folks need in order to succeed. Not trying to rhyme, but it just worked out that way. But thank you, Maigen. Thank you, Elmarie, for kicking off these Ask Me Anything.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And I knew this would turn into some conversation, and that's good too. Some things that just happen off the cuff that none of us planned for, but people need to hear this stuff. So again, I hope people find great value in this. I hope you find a way to implement it, take it to heart. And hey, folks out there listening, you have any questions for me about anything, feel free, reach out. You have questions for Maigen and Elmarie, reach out to them, connect with them on LinkedIn. But we're going to get into our closing comments. So Maigen, we're going to start off. It is on you. What is your closing set of statements for the audience today?
Oh gosh, I love it. Closing set of statements is that I actually feel that your thoughts today have validated a lot of what I have decided to do as part of this apprenticeship agency. So
Yes.
if you're curious about that, if you want to learn more, I am building out loud, hashtag build in public, I think it is. A lot of folks would not consider my company a startup because it is a service industry business. And I'm like, that is okay. My goal is to eventually partner with healthcare companies and government agencies to make their
Nice.
websites more accessible to the folks with disabilities. And people with disabilities are the largest and fastest growing minority group in the US. And you and I can join them at any point in time simply by having an accident like I did in August, breaking my arm, getting sick,
Ooh.
or simply by getting older. So if
Wow.
you're interested in accessibility, now is a great time to get in and learn how accessibility and UX work together. So I'd love to see you. And actually, Darren, I'm going to send you a free code to come to one of my events. I think you'll enjoy it if you ever have the time.
Nice.
I think you'll enjoy it, and I think you'll see a lot of value. It is all finding low-hanging fruit and learning to build that UX muscle just a little
Yes.
bit at a time.
Yes. Love
Yeah.
that. Love that. Elmarie, your closing thoughts for the audience today.
Though this has been extremely, extremely rewarding as a starting person in the field. It's been incredible to hear both of you talk about how to navigate different settings when you're doing UX and the value that it holds in different scenarios, and how can people truly embrace UX and all of its colors, because at the end of the day, if UX is not implemented, is not taken seriously as it should, there's going to be like bigger failures because we
Yes.
identify the smaller failures so it doesn't cascade into a big snowball of something bad, something extremely bad. So so the folks listening, definitely reach out if you have any questions. And from a very early person in the career, and super excited to connect with others. Thank you so much, Darren and Maigen, for this opportunity. I
Absolutely.
appreciate you
Thank
guys.
you.
Absolutely. So, folks, this has been fantastic. And those of you out there, again, you have any questions, always feel free to reach out, connect with me on LinkedIn. The t-shirt, you probably couldn't see much of the t-shirt. UX is not UI. Go to Kaizen, excuse me,
For
go
sure.
to kaizentees.com. Check out the products out there, the t-shirts, the teddy bear, the UX is not UI teddy bear, the coffee mugs, what have you. That's a part of supporting part of what it is that we do here on the show now. But we thank everybody out there for taking the time to listen to this wonderful show. This is going to be so much fun. We got to do this again. And then Maigen, we got to connect so we can just have a show or two just to talk about the apprenticeship, because that is what a dynamite. I heard somebody else mention that before, but you're the only person I know that has executed it. And so mega kudos to you. I just got to say that again. This is fantastic. I'm looking forward to all the success you're going to achieve with that initiative. So, but folks, that is all the time we have for today. So thank you again for listening. But this is Darren Hood, the host of The World of UX, signing off. Happy UXing, everybody.